Now, my first question for you, Mr. Duffy, is:
Sure.
Does anyone call you Bill or William, or are you Billy to everybody in the world?
Pretty much. I don't really respond well to Bill because that was my dad's name, and so Bill. There are about 2 people that call me Bill, and but not many. It's mostly Billy. There's probably a lot of names that are uttered that are very different than that too, I would imagine. But mostly it's usually Billy.
Now I know I've learned something new today besides what I'm about to learn about Coloursound.
Coloursound, yeah.
Now, Coloursound, of course, the first record was about 20 years ago. Second record, 20 years later. But was the first Coloursound album signed to Velvel Records?
Well, see, you got me there because I'm getting to that age where technical details tend to escape me a little bit, like factual, like you can't take me to court on any of this. I thought it was, but it was originally started when we did Coloursound originally. There was no Cult, there was no Alarm. It was just me and Mike. We've put a band together, blah, blah, blah. And we didn't really know, we just treated it like any other band. And I guess I think we did try and sign it to a label and do all that stuff. And we did some dates, but then it kind of, the Cult got back together and then Mike did the Alarm and it kind of just drifted. So, but originally it was always has been a kind of a self-made project kind of thing. I hate using the word project, apart from the Joe Perry project.
Right.
That's a cool way to say the word project because Joe Perry's cool. So if you say project, you have to say Joe Perry.
Joe Perry, those are the few of the good projects out there.
It's a very small list. Joe Perry's about the only one, actually, I think. I'm trying to think of any other projects.
I like the Alan Parsons project personally.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but that's it. That's a very short list.
Yeah. So what I was trying to get to is that record company was Walter Yetnikov's label after Sony. So I was trying to figure out, because he signed a lot of great artists to that label, and then the label basically went belly up, and that was the sad part. There was a lot. So I didn't know if it was a lost in the shuffle here, but then it was superstardom in the UK and it did well.
No. That's a good question, and he's a legend. Unfortunately, it was one of those things where I was put in a very awkward situation where I got a phone call about doing the Cult again.
Yeah.
And I was put in a very tough place because of my friendship with Mike. And I made the decision that I would explore the Cult and see what happened. And then the Cult got offered one of the last big record deals on Lava, Jason Flom's label. And so the Cult kind of sort of took off again for a couple of years. And then in that period, I think what happened was Mike. I was in England when Coloursound was done, the first album. I ended up moving back to the States when the Cult got back together in 99 and sort of stayed. So that was the thing with me and Mike was separated a lot by that. And I think what happened with Mike was he was inspired enough to think, well, maybe I want to do a band again. I don't just want to be a lead singer, or a solo artist. And I think he reimagined what the Alarm could be for him after Coloursound. And that's what he sort of pursued as well in that era.
Right. I like the album. It doesn't sound dated to me. The new record, which I've heard quietly, I've heard ahead of the general public, also great. The first record to me, a lot of it sounds like Oasis wishes the third record of theirs could have been that.
I do. I think that's an astute observation. I mean, you make records. To me, I've always tried to make records that capture the time that you're in the sense that, I'm not separate from my environment, so at that period in the UK, Oasis were a huge thing. And that was a lot of going on. And I would imagine that, there's some that probably seeped in. If that was like the reimagining of rock and roll post grunge, which, was maybe what Oasis did in the UK, then that kind of was in there. I it's probably atmospherically around for sure. I definitely went to see them a few times, you know, and I sort of knew them vaguely.
Well, it's great to see that your past with Mike is documented so well in video form. The Coloursound YouTube channel has the video that Jules posts, and then it also has footage of when Mike performed on stage with the Cult at the Gathering 5. Is it the Gathering V or the Gathering 5? I assume it's 5.
I think it's 5. I think it's 5. Yeah, he well, the Gathering's Mike's thing. He sort of invented this like fan festival.
Yeah.
Way back after he'd left the Alarm, he had this idea that why don't you make the fans come to you? And he started with this very small gathering of fans. It blew into this huge thing 20 years later. And Coloursound played a couple of those. I would jump up and play a Cult song with Mike at the Gathering out of friendship. And then, you know, the Coloursound, we played there a couple of shows, which was fun as part of the Gathering, you know, and that was all fun. And that was all stuff that happened sort of like 97, 98, you know, in probably early 99 as well. Because the Cult got back together, got active again in the summer of 99.
As I was telling your publicist, Ken, pulling the curtain back, I've got all these 8x11s, and I found the Cult Lava one from 99 of you guys recently in that pile there. Yeah, as you said, that was one of the last big record deals, but we're talking about Coloursound. And what I'm curious about is when I find that you have all-star kind of projects and collaborative things where there's 2 or more names in them, there's usually a unifying thing that brought that band together. It's not usually, hey, I'm a fan of yours, you're a fan of mine. It's usually golf. It's something like that. What was what brought you and Mike together in the first place?
That again, a good observation. It's something unifying, usually outside of music. And with me and Mike, it was football / soccer. And
I like your American pronunciation.
What I think in England, basically we call it rambling, which is basically hiking around in the hills and dales of Great Britain. And there was a lot of that going on before the guitars came out. That was the commonality of why we got together with those 2 factors. And we'd play football together, and it was just like an old, you know, but that's not uncommon. You know, it happens with loads of bands. Yes. Unfortunately, with bands, they end up spending too much time together in a pressure cooker. It becomes like a business, and then they just sort of fall out of love with each other, and you get what you get. So, you know, with me and Mike, we were never together creatively long enough to get a divorce. So we just, you know what I mean? We just rekindled an old romance, and it still kind of like feels good, and felt good to do it, you know?
I've heard in LA there are football matches that are musician centric that involve Rivers Cuomo from Weezer, Robbie Williams. Were you ever in that world?
Yes. There used to be a game actually in the early 90s, and we used to play at a place in Beverly Hills. It sounds swankier than it was. It really wasn't that swanky. And we used to call it Two Bob Park, where every wannabe amateur footy player would show up, and, you know, we'd there's an expression in England, jumpers for goalposts. Basically means you take your jackets off, put them in a pile, and that's the goal. 2 piles, and that's the goals.
Yes.
And you just, you know, whatever. Anyway, it was that kind of situation. And there was loads of people. I mean, I remember we did that, but and then later there were offshoots with Robbie Williams, and he started a thing up at his house. Rod Stewart does some stuff. He did, you know, and there's this whole expat football thing in Los Angeles. Yeah, I mean, I remember playing, and there was like one of Milli Vanilli. Yeah, wow. Michael Schenker. And I've never seen Skinnier Legs. He wasn't a bad player. Both Germans, both could play.
Yes.
And not unsurprisingly, I remember the Milli Vanilli guy. We all used to just like because all he ever wanted, pass me the ball, pass me the ball. He was like one of those guys, you know, the guys you hate playing with. He was like, really, come on.
Was that
we were hoping
Fabrizio or Fab?
I can't remember which one it was, but I remember he was just, you know, whatever. He was funny. But loads of guys, you know, anybody coming through town that knew anybody would just show up, and it was like a social Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, and to a certain extent, it still goes on. You know, there's an element of that in Los Angeles all the time, you know, where you can get a pickup game, you know, with some expats here and there.
That blows my mind, because one of the recurring themes that I have as somebody who tapes interviews 5-6 days a week is how many gigs and albums happen because of pickup sports games. And when you think about the 70s, the Hollywood Vampires was all based on a softball team. And, and I've been hearing a lot of the people.
I thought that was based on an 8-ball team.
I thought it was a softball league. That I
think I just heard the ball was involved, but I thought it was an 8-ball.
Ball and hangovers, but
yeah.
There was that one, and then there's like everyone who seems to have played with Sammy Hagar and or Eddie Van Halen seems to have also been in like a pickup softball league.
Yeah. Sammy's fun. Which
connects or confuses me, because don't most people get into guitar because they can't play sports, like they're the outcast?
I think people always, my only little pet theory is that if you're lucky enough to get to be a successful musician, that it becomes your career, ergo your job, you're looking for a hobby outside of that.
Yeah.
That's not involved. Because when you start as a musician, I agree, you tend to put sports to one side in your fantasy. Every musician always was a fan first. And my belief is that it changes when that the curse is that you get successful, you get what you wish for, and then you start getting negative about it because it becomes a job that you're forced to do, which sounds ridiculous to somebody who's never been in a band, but it's hard to explain. But you know, if you get, you know, like you've got your whole life to write your debut album, and then you've got like 20 minutes in the back of some crap hotel in a van to write your second album. And your subject matter can be about 4 different things, because all you see is the same 4 things every day for a year. You know what I mean? So, and that's the good story. You know, that's the good news story. So I just think guys look for any release, you know, to get out of, just to kind of, and football's a big one, especially for Brits and that, you know, it's a good release to kick a ball, even badly. You know, I've seen some, I remember when we first started with the Cult, the Death Cult, and there was all these goths around and these different bands, and everybody was wearing like skinny black jeans and all that stuff. And we'd even play soccer games in all that gear with the belts and all the spiky hair, and it's pretty funny.
Well, this is a compliment to you. No matter what band or project you've been in, the riffs are always great. And as an amateur musician, it sounds to me like the riffs come first in just about every project that you've been a part of. Like, it's not the singer with a chord structure. It sounds like you started with a riff and everyone joined in. Am I totally off base on that?
No, you're absolutely bang on. There are exceptions, but that's the rule. It's always been kind of riff orientated guitar rock, and you know, there's no shame in that. You know, I think he did quite well for Led Zeppelin and AC/DC. So you know, as a sort of a philosophical approach, it works. You know, and you know, you kind of, there are songs where you serve the riff, where the singer's job is to serve the riff. You know, it's not to you know, the outpourings of their deepest poetry. It's just do something with your voice that makes this riff, takes it to another level. And I've been fortunate enough to work with singers who have helped me to do that, you know, and as have, you know, a lot of the great guitar riff writers, Tony Iommi, you know, Jimmy Page, Angus, Malcolm Young, and millions of, you know, riff writers. You know, you do need the vocalist. Even if he's singing about what socks he lost, he's got to sing about it in a way that makes you think that you're, you know, the beheading a Viking or whatever it is the hell it is you're going to do. You know, it's just, that's the part of the job, you know, and it takes people out of themselves and into another realm, you know, and I think that's very healthy, you know, for the audience to be able to participate and believe in something like that. I think it's great.
So Coloursound is no different. It's riff oriented. And when the story goes that you sent in 2019 a riff to Mike through email, and that was the genesis of this whole project. So what I'm getting at is, you mentioned Tony Iommi, and people who've really prodded Tony Iommi have gotten him to admit that there's just hundreds of lifts lying around. In your case, I'm just imagining that's the case, that there's just tons and tons of lifts.
I wish there were. You know, there've probably been some that have fallen through the cracks, and there's probably some where, you know, the riff's good, but the song that it became isn't, you know, and that's kind of sad, you know, but those are the casualties of war, as it were. So I think that, you know, in general, no, I haven't got, I wish I was more prolific. I just kind of do it when the mood takes me, you know. I just get a feeling. It's almost like I hear it before I play it. When a riff, whatever these riffs are that I've written that people like have become memorable, you know, I don't know what the foundation for me obviously was glam rock and roll. But I mean, early rock and roll, then probably like 70s glam, you know, basically guitar solos you could whistle, you know, that was the kind of music. And then into punk, that was kind of the foundation of my musical upbringing. So I've always tried to bring those elements into what I do as a writer, but you know, it just comes out really. I don't sit in front of I just play guitar whenever I feel like playing guitar. And, you know, I didn't want to make it like a job, you know what I mean? I was like, that was the whole point. I didn't want to get a job. So, you know, I just, I work hard at it, but it's a great, you know, it's fun. And I just get a feeling for a riff, like it just comes out. It's a very strange phenomenon for me.
For you, when you're writing, or say Coloursound, does it have to be a specific guitar? Does it have to be a White Falcon, or is it any guitar?
No. That's a good point. I mean, they say that every guitar has a song in them. And I don't overthink it. I just grab what's to hand. Sometimes with Coloursound, you know, given that a lot of my career I was based in America and the Cult was based in the States, sometimes when I've done Coloursound in the UK, I've been grabbing whatever I could beg, steal, or borrow, because all my gear's in Los Angeles in a lockup with every other rock band you've ever heard of. You know, we're all in the same lockup in North Hollywood. So sometimes it's just I'll use, and you know, making albums in the past, generally the producers that I've used with the Cult have been guitar players. Certainly Bob Rock has a tremendous collection of guitars, some of which he bought off me, sadly, and Chris Goss, had you know, great guitar player. And so I've had access to that, you know, with the Cult. So, but there's not. I mean, there are certain, you get an idea or an instinct. But I agree with you. One thing I would say is that I usually just have one guitar at home, and I'll have it at home for a while, and then I'll swap it for a different one of a different feel. You know, a Gretsch or a Gibson, or maybe even some sort of like Fender Esquire, and they do make you maybe play differently. So you know, I'll get a Les Paul Junior, kind of very minimalist, small guitar, get onto a big White Falcon, you know, it's like the Cadillac Escalade of the guitar world, you know, and it does make you approach differently. So it's a good creative tool, yeah.
So with the second album by Coloursound being done, of course, the whole world is still kind of on hold. People are approaching touring cautiously. You never know if the gigs that are scheduled in June are happening, per se. Of
course.
But are there plans to do gigs around the second Coloursound album? And you know, if this is embargoed. feel free to.
Yeah, no, I think everybody gets what, I understand what you mean. And the willingness to do some shows is there. It's just if and when, there's whatever this, whatever the fluid situation is with pandemic stuff, but also with Coloursound there's the Cult and there's the Alarm and Mike Peters that has to kind of work in harmony with Coloursound, timing wise. So,
sure,
we have to figure all those things out. But I'd like to do a couple of shows with Coloursound. Be fun.
Got it.
So we hope so. But there's nothing on the books yet, and certainly nothing around the release, unfortunately, because that's way too soon to. But that could change. I'm eagerly observing what all the lab rats are doing with these gigs that are coming up. And I have some friends who've done gigs in the last year in very, very, and if I'm being honest, most of them are like, I wish we hadn't bothered. They went to extraordinary lengths to do something. And in the end, if they're being really honest, I think they probably wish they hadn't bothered doing it because it wasn't what they thought it'd be. Having said that, I did see that Kiss gig in Dubai at New Year's Eve. So if you've got about $47 kajillion to throw at a gig, you can make a really good gig happen. If somebody's writing the check. That was one hell of a concert.
Now, I did watch that pay-per-view as well. I'm curious, were you watching for morbid curiosity, or are you a Kiss fan and we just didn't know it this whole time?
Okay, couple of things. Well, I never was a Kiss fan when I was a kid in England. I know I played with members of Kiss and yes. I hung out with them. So as a child, I never got it. It was too American for me. I couldn't get my head around it. Having spent a lot of my life in America and touring in America, I get what Kiss means and represents now.
Sure.
And it's a little bit like trying to explain Status Quo to an American. Like why they were life-changing in the same way as watching, yes. like you have to be there. So that is kind of a cultural transference thing. But I thought it was a great gig. Eric, the drummer, did the demos for Sonic Temple for the Cult.
I knew that Mickey Curry played on the record. I didn't know that.
Eric did the demos, and Eric has the same birthday as me. So happy birthday, Eric. And we're both exactly the same age.
Wow.
But the funny thing was, well, two things about a friend of mine works for Paul Stanley, so I got to not pay to view. And even better, a very close friend of mine was in Dubai at that time and got to watch the gig live. And he's not in the rock and roll business at all, but he was there texting me while it was going on. So it was a surprise New Year's Eve. I actually really enjoyed the gig. I thought Kiss were great, actually. I thought they performed brilliantly.
Wow. The things that I'm learning today, Billy.
Hey, see?
Well, being super mindful of your time, we'll ask two quick questions.
Okay.
Then you're a free man. And the first one is, Coloursound was started before COVID-19 on the second record, at least. Are there enough leftovers so that we might eventually see a third record?
I think we used up what we had. I honestly think to get to where we were at with it, there wasn't a lot of stuff left on the cutting room floor. It's a basic 10-track rock and roll album. That's pretty much what we had. We did write one more. There's a bonus song called The Wild and the reason why I bring that up is that'll be on like some bonus edition or something. We wrote it after we'd finished the album and we finished it off because it was a really good tune. It's indicative, I think, that if me and Mike get together for any amount of time with a couple of guitars, I'm pretty confident we could write another album. But it's not from stuff that's left over. It would just be, we create well together quickly.
You just answered 3 questions with that. So then the audible last question is: is there a TV recommendation you could pass along to somebody who needs a new show to start?
Okay. My little binging confession, I watch 2 shows, and people are going to laugh. I like any kind of Scandinavian crime noir series, like I would say The Bridge. I've just watched one called The Killing. For people that don't get it, it's a whole genre of like weird serial killer, but it's all mostly in Scandinavia, anywhere. And it's like a whole thing. And I've become kind of addicted to the genre. And it usually follows a format. But The Bridge is a very good example of it. It's been made in several countries now. But and then the other one is I watched Time Team. And that's a British show about a bunch of old eccentrics that run around digging up tiny fragments of nothing and trying to pretend they know how people used to live in 1104. And, you know, they're trying to illuminate the dark ages by, you know, the contents of somebody's chamber pot. And I think I've seen every episode of that. And they ran that show for 20 years. Wow. So those have been my 2 ones, really. I don't, and once in a blue moon, I will watch a music show, but I'm not, you know, I like to have other things in my life as well as music and just kind of mix it up. I don't, you know, but generally those are my little guilty secrets, getting out of my musical head.
Well, the good taste goes beyond the music. Well, thank you so much for your time, whether it's Coloursound, The Cult, Kings of Chaos, whatever it is. Looking forward to seeing you live in New York when the time is right, and just keep up the great music there, Billy.
Great chatting with you. I will do. I'm too dumb to quit.
Paltrocast.